I've been doing this podcast now for a couple years, and I have found very quickly, actually, I found that comments don't always need to be addressed, especially in the actual comment section. There are many times where I have commented back and actually had dialogue and what I feel has been fruitful conversation for both sides potentially in comments. But there's also a lot of times where I will see a comment and I like to engage. I like to, even people that disagree with me. Um, but there's also times where I realize that there's nothing that's going to happen because they're either a troll, they're just going to comment and walk away and never say anything else, or I will get drug into a argument in the comment section of one of my videos, go back and forth, and it will inevitably take up a lot of my personal time, which I don't have very much of. So a lot of times I will leave those alone. But occasionally I will find some that I feel need addressed, and rather than doing it in the comment section, I'm making a video. So recently I had a video that came out titled "Did Science Replace God?" And this came as a result. I saw an episode of Timcast IRL. Phil Labonte was the host of that episode, and I like Phil quite a bit. I watch Timcast regularly, pretty much every episode. Um, I agree with Phil on a lot of stuff politically. I think we land in the same spot on most things politically, or at least very, very close. We land. And overall, like I like Phil's band, All That Remains. I listen to All That Remains. So I'm a fan of Phil. I like Phil as a person. Phil's not a Christian. Um, I think he would describe himself as agnostic. But anyways, in this, there's a conversation about um, coming back to religiosity, and Phil made the point that he doesn't think that's as likely because there's more science and stuff like that now, and so whereas people used to say, well, I don't know how that happened, so that must mean that God just does it. Now we're like, oh, I know how that happens because science can explain that. My main point in this video, and I'm summarizing this so we can get in the comments, so the dialogue that this individual, I'm assuming he, maybe not, makes sense. But the I addressed his claim, and I don't necessarily disagree that people feel that way, but I don't feel like that's actually valid because all that is doing is kicking the can down the road. So as example with the sun rising and setting, well, we know the sun doesn't actually rise and set. God's not causing the sun to come up over the earth and go back down. It is the earth spinning around and rotating around the sun while the sun is moving through our solar system. And so, yes, there is an understanding that's there, but that doesn't get rid of the ultimate cause of all that happening. It just shows that it's immeasurably more complicated and complex than we thought. So that means it's more needed that there is some type of a causal force at the beginning. But I'm getting into some of the arguments that I'll have against these comments. There are 4 comments here from the same person. Actually, at the time of recording this, there are 5 comments on the video. I'm only going to pull up this individual person's 4. The reason why the other comment is just no. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know what they're talking about. And this is another issue with YouTube comments. Take this if you're trying to comment with someone that's creating content, me or anybody else. This video is titled, Did Science Replace God? They commented no. I don't know if they're talking about, like, if they're saying no, science didn't replace God. If they're saying no to one of the points I made, um, I don't even know how to react to that because I don't know where they're even at on it. I don't know what to say. But I want to get into each of these 4 comments that this individual made. I will read them in their entirety, and then I will give an explanation or a response, my response to that. So let's read the first one. Of the trillions and trillions of planets in the known universe, it's statistically inevitable that a planet would be conductive for life. Also, you don't understand statistics. So, um, I mean, I don't say, like, first of all, I do understand statistics. Um, you don't understand statistics. We can do this all day. But the original comment that he made, the trillions of planets, that it's statistically inevitable eventually we'd have one that supports life. Let's start here. See, the problem isn't just about finding a planet with the right conditions. The real issue is how life begins at all. Even if you had a perfect planet with water, oxygen, and sunlight, you're still left with the question of how you get from non living matter to a self replicating, information driven cell. Statistically, the odds are so astronomically low that saying, well, the universe is big, so it just had to happen somewhere, is not a solution. It's legitimately just a way of avoiding the problem. See, you can do this and you can kick the can down the road, but eventually you hit a wall. That wall is, where does life, consciousness, and information ultimately come from? That where is God. So, the whole idea that there are trillions and trillions of planets, so it just had to happen at some point. Okay, but those trillions and trillions of planets had to come somewhere, had to come from somewhere, right? And if you're saying there's no God, if you're saying that there's no ultimate thing to start this, we'll get into another comment this individual makes. I'm referring to him as he. I don't know. I'm assuming he. I might be wrong. Don't take it personally if you happen to watch this and you are not a he. I apologize. It's not intentional. But yes, so there has to be some type of cause. If you don't believe in God, you can hold that stance. That's fine. What is the cause? There's another point he makes here that everything, it's all natural. Well, you can't have everything that's all natural because eventually you had, go back far enough, you had nothing. And then from nothing, you got something. Nothing never makes something. That definitionally is a miracle. So you have to have at least that one miracle, which is supernatural. So, question or comment to, I just did a Bible in your video. Comment number 2. Personal incredulity isn't evidence for God. That's true. Just because something is hard to believe doesn't automatically mean God is the explanation. But this isn't about personal incredulity. This is about probability, causality, and explanation. If the most fundamental things about the universe, its beginning, its fine-tuning, the origins of life, all require something beyond natural law, then pointing to God isn't simply saying, I don't get it, so God did it. It's saying the best explanation for why there's something rather than nothing, why the laws of nature are so precise, and why information exists in DNA is because there's an intelligent mind behind it all. So, again, I'm sorry, but the comment kind of just falls flat. Comment number 3. Never once have we found... Sorry, I was reading somewhere else. Never once in all things we've discovered about the natural world has the answer been supernatural. It's all natural. Now, this sounds persuasive, I will admit. But let's think carefully for a minute about this. Science, by definition, only studies natural processes. It doesn't even have the tools to measure the supernatural. So, of course, every scientific discovery is going to be natural. It's going to describe a natural mechanism. But that doesn't mean the supernatural isn't real. It means science is limited in what it can study. Think of it this way. If you find a book, science can describe the ink on the page, the paper fibers, the binding process, but it can't tell you where the story came from. For that, you need to look beyond the natural explanation to the mind of an author. Science is great at explaining the how, but not the why. And when it comes to the beginning of the universe or the origin of life, the natural explanations don't remove the need for God, they highlight it. As I said in my original video, and I've said previously in this one, as we've studied more, we've seen that everything is actually much more complicated, complex than we originally thought, which doesn't make the cause of it able to be something simpler. It's more complicated than we thought. We need something more than what we thought. Now, God is sufficient source for all of that, as a Christian would say. Yeah. Last comment, and there are a few things kind of packed in this one. So I'll read through it, and then we'll go through and kind of address some of these one by one. You must be getting suspicious when the words of God about the natural world are demonstrably wrong. Rabbits don't chew cud, bats aren't birds, mustard seeds aren't the smallest seeds, and the flood is so easily debunked. We know humans evolved. Genesis gets things wrong. It's all rather damning. The Bible reads like ancient people who didn't understand nature. Okay. First, it's important to remember the Bible isn't a modern science textbook. It was written in the everyday language of its time. When it says rabbits chew the cud, that's simply describing what the people saw them doing. Much like the example I gave earlier, when we say that the sun rises and sets, even though scientifically we know the earth rotates, that's observational language, not an error. I think most people would agree with that. Even people that discredit the Bible that are not Christians, I think a lot would agree with that. Second, many of these so-called errors that we see in Scripture, and the ones that are mentioned by this individual in the comments, but also other ones as well. Number of errors that I've heard people bring up. They're not really errors, but they are about misinterpretation. Okay? Mustard seeds were the smallest seeds that farmers in Israel worked with. So, that fit. Bats being grouped with birds is just an ancient classification system, not a claim about evolutionary taxonomy. So, if the Bible was claiming to be a modern scientific textbook, then sure, you can hold it to that standard. But it's not. That's not what it's trying to do. It is written for the people of that time, in the modern language for the people of that time. These boil down to a misunderstanding from this individual of what the people at the time knew, understood, and how they talked. Third, the flood and Genesis are debated topics with multiple interpretations, even among Christians. I've gone over this. I was going to say ad nauseum, but not quite ad nauseum. There's a lot of people that spend a lot more time on it than I have. At least on my channel, my personal life. This is something I have dove into a lot, like a lot in recent years. And the statement that he made that where is it? We know humans evolved. We don't know humans evolved. We don't. It's a theory. It's a theory that I don't think is accurate. But I'm also not a young earth creationist. There are Christians who believe in an evolutionary process. They're theistic evolutionists. And that's fine. You can hold it that view. It's not a salvific issue. Like I have no issue whatsoever with that. it's like there's no point in even bringing that up unless your view of Christians is everyone believes that there's a literal 7 days of creation and that's it. But that's not settled in Christianity. Um, but yeah, none of these, specifically when we're talking about Genesis, the things that you brought up with the flood and evolution, um, none of these difficulties undermine the central message that God is creator and that his word reveals truth about him. That is the primary purpose of what we see at the beginning of Genesis. Specifically, it's not as much about how it happened, it's about who did it. And the answer is God. So, finally, let me flip this back on you. If the Bible was really just the product of ancient people who didn't understand nature, how did it also manage to give us a consistent narrative across 1,500 years, written by multiple authors, all pointing to the same God and the same redemption story fulfilled in Jesus Christ? That's not the mark of primitive ignorance. It is evidence of divine authorship. So here's the big picture. Science keeps explaining how things work, but it can't explain why anything exists in the first place. Every discovery only shows more complexity and pushes us closer to the conclusion that there must be a creator behind it all. The natural world is impressive, but it's not enough to explain itself. You still need God as the ultimate source. So, those are my thoughts on these comments. As I said, I don't know this individual. I'm not trying for this to come across as demeaning or berating, but the idea that Christianity has been debunked by science is absolutely ignorant to both Christianity and science. So, sorry to say. But appreciate everyone watching, listening, and let me know if you see other comments like this you'd like me to respond to, or jump in and tell me I'm wrong and I have no idea what I'm talking about in a video, and maybe I'll make a video about you too. So, yeah, God bless everybody. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as all those things help the channel grow. If this has been a blessing to you, you can share it with somebody else. It can be a blessing to them, and word of mouth is the best way that podcasts grow as well. So that can be something that helps this channel as well. Come back every single day. We're going to have more content every single day. Bible reading plan. We're going through the Bible an entire year, different teachings, all kinds of just really great biblical sound stuff like that. So you're not going to want to miss it. Come back, subscribe. Thanks. God bless.